Mustang Lakes is one of the most talked about master planned communities in North Texas, but here's the problem. Most people only see the Instagram reality version of Mustang Lakes. Today, I'm going to be breaking down what it's really like to live in Mustang Lakes, everything from the lifestyle, the cost, the community vibe, and things that could make you absolutely love it or regret making a move here altogether. If you're thinking about moving to Celina or anywhere north of Frisco and you've heard Mustang Lakes is one of the best places, this video is going to be for you because we're going to be going deep. The good, the bad, the great, and the stuff no one talks about until after closing. Stick around because halfway through this video, I'm going to share the one type of buyer Mustang Lakes is absolutely not built for, and that mistake alone can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. When most people hear about Mustang Lakes, you're usually going to picture your beautiful homes, resort-style amenities, pools, parks, playgrounds, and a picture-perfect neighborhood like many others in Celina. Here's the truth. Mustang Lakes isn't just another expensive neighborhood with great amenities, floor plans, and lots. It's a trade-off, and depending on your priorities, that can make this trade-off either a brilliant decision or a complete deal breaker for you. Now, I help buyers relocate every single week, people moving from California to Georgia and anywhere in between, or even just here locally, and almost all of them have Mustang Lakes on their short list. That's what we're going to be covering in today's video. We're going to go over the location, the long-term growth, your home prices, amenities, schools, and the downside no one talks about, and finally, who Mustang Lakes is really for and who should probably look elsewhere. Let's start with the foundation of it all, and let's talk about the location. Now, before you go look at floor plans, amenities, and price, you really need to understand where Mustang Lakes actually sits, and that context changes how you judge everything else and make your decision in this community. Mustang Lakes is in North Celina, just above Prosper, and about 10 to 12 minutes north of Highway 380, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. And while that distance is pretty small on a map, it's quite meaningful as far as location and convenience goes. With where Mustang Lakes sits, you're still going to be close enough to Frisco and Prosper to where your day-to-day life feels normal, but you're far enough out to have a little bit of space. Your work, shopping, restaurants, sports, schools, and everything else, none of that feels super far away. But like I said, you're still far enough north, no longer buying in the most crowded, fully priced part of the Metroplex. That's the balance a lot of people are trying to find, and it's harder to hit than it sounds. People talk about growth, they usually focus on what's already built. But long-term changes almost always start with construction. As annoying as it can be to have to deal with and drive through, we need to talk about it for a moment. Now, as far as the major corridors and roads near Mustang Lakes, you have Preston Road, which is your major north-south corridor. And then you've got the Collin County Outer Loop, which is already being expanded and just opened recently. Now, Collin County Outer Loop has massively changed traffic, especially if you need to go east or west. You don't have to get on 380, which can get quite congested. Now, of course, this isn't going to change life overnight, but over time, it's going to drastically improve your quality of life as far as how accessible everything becomes. While road projects and construction is never exciting and usually griped about, your commute time shortens. Of course, everyone tends to move there because it's more convenient and people prefer, of course, to spend as little time in the car as possible. And of course, when everything combines, good schools, great commute times, the area starts to function a lot differently than it did before, and it begins to boom. That's typically how your places that were out there several years ago all of a sudden become a big city and desirable to live in. Highway 380 has already undergone massive transformation. They've opened up some of the overpasses. It's by no means still perfect, but it's much better than it was a few years ago. Now, with that, along the Highway 380 corridor, we've seen a lot of growth. Prosper was the last big boom from it, and Celina is just north, so that's what's going to be coming next. Of course, that doesn't mean instant change, but Celina's population is expected to almost double in the next 4 to 5 years. So we're going to see a lot of gradual, steady development that shows up over years, not within the next few months. Let's talk about the schools that Mustang Lakes is going to feed into. Mustang Lakes feeds into Celina ISD, which we'll talk about more a little bit later. But from a location standpoint, school districts do matter because they're going to largely influence who moves in and how long you tend to stay in that community. Areas like when you think of Frisco that are anchored by your strong school districts, you see a lot of stability, especially as the community matures. See Frisco continuing to boom and still be a highly desired place to move into. When you step back and look at the location of Mustang Lakes, Here's what really tends to stand out. This isn't an area that's going to try and boom overnight. Positioned for people who want to stay for a while. They have it planned to have their kids go to those school districts and watch the area grow around them. Now, Celina has a great school district. It's a B rated. You get a little bit better home prices, but still don't sacrifice on school district. Celina may not be a great short-term play for you as a lot of the development is still growing, but if you're thinking in the longer time frames and more future pacing, this is where Celina and Mustang Lakes really starts to make sense for you. That difference in timing shows up most clearly in your home prices, because what most people expect these homes to cost versus what is actually happening here is where the real disconnect is. Let's break that part down next. This is the part that catches a lot of people off guard, and I do mean a lot of people. Most buyers that come into Mustang Lakes are thinking, okay, this is super nice, but it's not gonna be too much more. And that assumption makes sense. You look at a map, you see Celina, you see that Prosper's nearby, how different could it really be? But once you step back and start to look at the numbers, this is where expectations tend to break. Because Mustang Lakes isn't just slightly more expensive in many cases, it's meaningfully more, and that's very intentional, and there's a reason they did that, which we'll get into. Now, what do you get with that? Of course, it's not just about square footage. A lot of buyers get stuck on the price per square foot, and that doesn't capture the whole story of Mustang Lake. You're not just paying for more house and more lot size, you're paying for how the community is structured. When you drive through Mustang Lakes, one of the first things you're going to notice is there's a lot more space. The homes aren't crowded and jam-packed together. You have more space between homes and less density overall. That's not accidental. There aren't many true entry-level homes in this development. The look, the feel, and the space of the neighborhood is done intentionally. There are some homes that start in the 500s. Most of them are going to be over the $700,000 mark and go well into the near $2 million range. Then you've got the design standards. They have a lot stricter guidelines and more consistency from street to street, so you don't have some crazy outlier pink house or something crazy that you see on the internet. Now, some people are going to hear strict guidelines and instantly think that it sounds limiting, but long-term, that's kind of what keeps a neighborhood from feeling like it's all over the place 10 years down the road and becoming less desirable, right? You want these homes to keep looking nice, up to standard, and not like a meme off Facebook. Another great thing about this, unless you're an investor, is since it is a little pricier and the HOA is a little bit more, which we'll get into in a minute, is it really limits the investors and having those rental homes people don't take as much pride in. So you're gonna have less turnover rate on rentals, and how the neighborhood behaves over time is gonna be kept up to a higher standard than some of those that may have a bunch of investment properties. Like I was saying, when the buy-in is higher, you're gonna get fewer investors, fewer short-term rentals, and fewer people treating the home like a temporary stop. This is going to be more of their long-term home. And that matters a lot more than what people realize, especially when the market shifts. Because when the market cools down, and it always does at some point, it always bounces back up, neighborhoods like this tend to stay a lot more stable and more predictable. You're not going to see as much panic selling or large dips in your home equity. And what does that stability do for you? It's going to give you a lot more resale confidence, even if you're not planning to sell anytime soon. You're going to know you're going to be able to sell, get good equity, and see that year-over-year appreciation. So of course, yes, Mustang Lakes does carry a premium. There's no getting around that, but you're not paying extra just to live here. You're paying for the predictability, the stability, and the luxury neighbors. But yes, Mustang Lakes is going to carry a premium. There's no getting around that, but you have to weigh out, is it worth paying the extra? You're not just paying extra to say you live there. You're paying for the predictability, paying for larger lot size, less rentals, less turnover, predictable neighbors, predictable upkeep, and your predictable long-term value. And for a lot of people, especially if you're relocating from out of state, that's a huge deal and big factor for you. I would imagine you don't want surprises. You don't want to wonder, what is the neighborhood going to look like in 5 or 10 years, 20 years down the road? So if you're coming in expecting Mustang Lakes to be a good value compared to other areas, you're probably looking at it the wrong way, because overall price, it's a little bit higher. It's not going to be cheaper. It's going to be more intentional, a little bit more space, better amenities, and like I said, just an overall better looking neighborhood. And pricing is only one piece of this, because the lifestyle here, the amenities, the layouts, the way you actually use the community, That's what really seals the deal for a lot of families that move here. So let's get into what really makes living in Mustang Lakes feel so different. Let's discuss amenities, because this is honestly where Mustang Lakes separates itself from a lot of the other Celina and North Texas communities. Everywhere in North Texas, you're gonna hear the phrase, it has resort-style amenities. Some of them don't. A lot of them honestly do have some pretty insane amenities. And, honestly, it's a builder marketing incentive that looks good on a brochure. But in Mustang Lakes, they actually do have those. In this community, you're gonna have lagoon-style pools, and they're not just for show. These get packed in the summer. A lot of people hanging out, overcrowded, but it's an active. So if you have kids, they're not gonna have an issue finding other kids in their age range to hang out with and plan their weekends around. You're also gonna have a fitness center, and this is not gonna be your hotel gym. This is, clean, modern, big enough that you're not waiting on the equipment every time you show up. A lot of people, once they move in, they end up canceling their gym memberships. They don't need them anymore, and they're already paying for that in the HOA. So it's a win-win. That's something you need to balance is, okay, with the HOA, could I cancel my gym membership? What's that worth? A lot of gym memberships in DFW, $20 to $50 a month. So something to consider. Now, of course, in 2026, you can't not have a pickleball court. You're also going to have tennis court and basketball court. Let me know if you've played pickleball. I'm curious. I've played a few times, but you're going to have a bunch of people. You can make friends with your neighbors, have a fun pickleball game or tennis, basketball, or just go for a walk. There's plenty of walking trails, green space for you to enjoy. If you have a dog, you can take them out there for a walk, to run around, jog, biking, whatever you want to do outside. And this may sound like a small factor is, nice walking and green spaces, but if you just want to get out and get a little active, it's nice to have a more scenic area than just walking a sidewalk with a bunch of homes to look at. Now, here's one of the things a lot of communities don't get right, and that's with their clubhouse that you pay your HOA dues for, is everything looks amazing when they're presenting it to you when you're moving in, and then there's no one there. At Mustang Lakes, it stays super active. You're gonna have a lot of exercise classes, some holiday events, community meetups. They have some pickleball tournaments, stuff for kids, stuff for you as an adult. So you're actually gonna get out, meet your neighbors, and be able to know people in the neighborhood to hang out with and, meet people, which is gonna be great if you're moving from out of state or even just new to the area, having people nearby that that if you need to borrow an egg or something from, or some super glue like my neighbor did the other day, you can do that. I hear that from buyers all the time, is that they made friends a lot faster than they expected in these communities. And that's not by accident. It's because of how these communities are integrated and used. And that's one of the differences it's kind of hard to put a price on is, you get to meet people in the community, see them every day, have events going on. It's going to be something that happens, it seems like almost weekly. And what's great too is, of course, you pay your HOA dues for it, but you're actually getting the value back. And that's one of the biggest complaints with HOAs that you hear, or that I hear from people, is what are we actually paying for? Minus mowing and some flowers twice a year. So something to consider is you actually get use out of it. So you're paying, almost $200 a month for the HOA, but I think it may be worthwhile for you. And for a lot of families, especially if you're relocating from out of state, this helps bridge the gap for you. You're not going to be starting from zero. You're going to be moving into a place that already has a lot of momentum and that you can meet people super fast. So if that's something that's important to you, let me know, reach out. I'd love to get started and help you make a smooth move. I've helped numerous families move here to North Texas, but let's get into what the school districts look like. Okay, let's talk about schools, specifically Celina ISD, because this is one of the biggest kind of pauses I get from buyers looking at Mustang Lakes. A lot of people moving here really love Frisco or PROSPER ISD, and when they hear Celina ISD, there's kind of a little bit of a pause, right? It's a newer school district, which we'll get into why that may actually be an advantage here in a little bit. Now, of course, it makes sense wanting Frisco. It's one of the top rated school districts here in Texas. It's big, established, and familiar. Well, Celina ISD is a lot newer, and that's not a bad thing. Think about it. Your kids are going to get newer schools, newer technology, and since they're newer and building so many more new schools, you get a better student to teacher ratio, and it's going to be a little bit easier for you to get input and talk to, the school board directly. I went to Allen ISD, graduated with almost 1,800 kids in my class, versus Celina is a lot smaller school district, has several high schools. Allen had one, and because they're because they're smaller and building several high schools, they're planning for the expected growth. Now, when you move to Mustang Lakes, of course, it's going to translate to those newer schools we talked about, more modern facilities, and smaller class sizes compared to your more built-out school districts. And of course, that part matters a lot more than what people realize. Celina ISD is going to be a system where you're not just another number or student, you're going to know each other, know your other classmates, know your families and teachers. There's still the small district feel, even though it's a booming city. And let's be clear, while Celina ISD is not one of the top-rated school districts, if you look up a lot of the school raters online, it's still great. It's B-rated, and what you get for that, your kids are still going to get a fantastic education. You're going to get a lot more affordable prices versus if you move into Prosper or Frisco. Like I said, Celina is one of the fastest growing cities in North Texas, and the school district is of course growing right alongside it. That's going to mean they're going to need longer term planning and a bigger focus more so on the town itself rather than just test scores. That isn't necessarily good or bad. If you're relocating, whether locally or out of state, this is going to become a value decision for you and what's most important to you. Do you want a massive established district where everything's already kind of set in stone and you know what to expect? Or do you like the idea of being a part of a community that's still being built and growing, where your kids are going to grow up as the district grows and still get in where it's kind of small and a little bit more personal than a big school district? There's no right or wrong answer here. It's really, what do you prefer? But it is important to understand which avenue you're choosing and what you can expect from each of those. For Mustang Lakes specifically, Celina ISD fits the community great. It's a lot of young families, a lot of people planning to stay long-term, and people who want to put roots down here and be in Celina for a while. Now, let's talk about what every buyer eventually runs into, and this is going to be the trade-offs. Okay, let's talk about some of the trade-offs. I'm a huge believer in no home or community is absolutely perfect, and Mustang Lakes is not the exception to that. Most of the downsides here are pretty straightforward. Nothing too shocking as long as you know what you're signing up for and what to look for. The first thing is going to be the HOA fee. They're a little bit higher than average. Of course, that's not accidental. You have resort-style amenities, multiple pools, courts, and events. All that's going to cost money and has to be funded somehow. It's going to run about $170, $180 a month for that. Now, remember, you get your own gym, so if your gym membership's $30, it knocks it down a little bit. If you're someone who just absolutely despises an HOA, this probably is not going to be your place. But if you actually use what you're paying for, the sports courts, the pools, the gyms, then you're going to feel like the value is probably there for you. Now, another big downside of Mustang Lakes is going to be your commute time. If you work south of 121, you're Plano, Legacy West, Dallas, your drive's going to be longer. You're going to be trading your proximity for a little bit more space and future growth versus, your 15-minute commute. So keep that in mind. Some people are going to be totally fine with that and not mind the drive, while others are going to hit 3-4 months mark and realize they underestimated it and really dislike it. So what I would encourage you to do is when you come here for a visit, try and come during a weekday so you can actually drive where you think you may be working so that you get an actual realistic expectation of what that will look like for you. Another downside is going to be there's a lack of retail and dining nearby. Right now it's limited. You've got a ton of essentials, but it's not like you're going to hop on a main road and have all your fast foods down in one row, all your Chick-fil-A's, Chipotle's, McDonald's, all that. You're still going to be driving for most things, so it's not going to be a walk to dinner or walk to drinks kind of neighborhood where there's a Sonic right down the road and you can go get, your go-to Sonic Blast or Slush. Here's the downside most people don't think about until they're living here. If you're a super spontaneous person that just doesn't like to plan, it's just, hey, let's go grab dinner right now, it's going to be a little bit of a drive for you. Or if you want to go to a movie, it's going to take some planning for your day-to-day life until that growth does catch up and develop. And that's not going to be a negative for everyone. In fact, a lot of people, that's actually the appeal of Mustang Lakes. This community really rewards planners, families, people who like being home, people who want a little bit quieter evening, structured routine, and of course, like we've talked about, bigger lots with space to breathe. Now, it can frustrate you if you're, a young professional, someone who really likes the nightlife, or anyone who hates driving, right? You're gonna have to drive a little bit further away. Or if you want, energy and everything right outside your front door, all your shops, eats, clubs, anything like that. Trade-off here isn't necessarily about quality, it's more so, does this community align with the type of lifestyle you enjoy and what makes life exciting for you? If this fits how you live or how you want to live, Mustang Lakes makes a lot of sense. If not, no amount of amenities, home gym, parks, pools, playgrounds will really change that for you. So let's get into who this community is actually perfect for. So who is Mustang Lakes going to be a good fit for? Well, it is one of the best communities here in North Texas. It has a very specific profile on who it fits, and not every neighborhood should work for everyone. This community is going to work well for your families with kids who want space, schools, and room to grow. If you're a move-up buyer, people leaving their first or second home and looking for their next, long-term chapter, or buyers who are planning to stay 7 to 10 years or longer and value community, the amenities, and stability more than being close to everything. In other words, Mustang Lakes is not going to be out chasing what is the hot pocket or area this year. It's going to be choosing an area that still makes sense several years from now for you. This is a neighborhood where you're actually going to use the amenities. You're going to see families walking, kids biking, neighbors, talking. I kind of rhyme. That sense of community matters more than you think here. That sense of community matters here more than the quick conveniences of going to grab groceries or food just right down the road. Now, if that sounds like you or something you may be interested in, Mustang Lakes is going to be a great choice for you. You're going to see more consistent home values, less turnover, and a community that feels more established while the area is still growing. But if that's not you, this next part is going to be super important. Now, if you need walkability, nightlife, or a short daily commute, this community is going to frustrate you 100%. Now, if you work from home, you may be able to overcome it's a little bit of a drive to the grocery store. This isn't going to be where you walk downstairs and go grab dinner at 9 p.m. real quick. Most errands are going to take a little bit of planning or a drive, and depending where your work is, your commute could feel really long. The community is going to be one that you still enjoy several years from now, not one that necessarily jump into and has everything you need right away. This is where I see a lot of buyers make a super expensive mistake. They buy based on the idea of the neighborhood, which is fantastic, but if the rest of your life makes it an inconvenience, it's not going to fit your daily life. You may love the model home, all the amenities, and all the potential growth, but 6 months in, you realize you're driving way more than you expected, hate your home and the location, and then want to sell. You might miss being closer to restaurants, work, and everyday needs, and suddenly, it's not such a fabulous community or home you bought into. So you want to make sure your dream home and version fits the reality of your lifestyle, because Mustang Lakes is a great community for the right buyer, but if it doesn't fit you, then it can be a terrible experience for you. If you have any thoughts of still moving here to North Texas, reach out to me. I'd love to help. I've helped numerous families relocate here from all over the United States and just locally. So if you want help with that, knowing which communities are best or which homes in Mustang Lakes may be best for you, reach out to me. I'll have all my contact info below. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more neighborhood and North Texas area highlights.